want you to see this. Allow me to be your eyes.
Freaks of the Vine, a controversial podcast answering tough questions regarding issues of the day from a practical biblical world view.
You are listening to Freaks of the Vine. Welcome, podcast world. We are a brand new podcast here, and this is our premiere, our grand opening, our wonderful world of introduction to podcast land. Freaks of the Vine is an apologetic podcast that is answering the questions, the tough ones, of the issues of the day, whether it be social or anything but political. We're going to talk about everything, but we're going to obviously do it from a biblical standpoint, a biblical worldview. I guarantee you're going to be entertained. This is not going to be boring. You might be offended. So we're going to start there. I'm going to introduce now to you. I'm Patrick. I'm your host, and along with me are my esteemed co-hosts, Zach, otherwise known as Dr. Z, and also the lovely Miss K. Welcome, you two.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And here we go with our guy behind the board, our master game planner, producer engineer, Gage. You guys can call him Gage. Hi, Gage.
Hello.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here tonight, and we're grateful to have this opportunity finally after a number of months of planning this and wanting to do this, and we're just happy to get it live.
Yep, long time coming. So
Indeed.
So. We might as well just dive right in the fire.
Do it.
Okay, so we have a few topics we're going to talk about tonight. And so for those of you who are tuning in, what we're going to try to do is kind of keep this never light. We're going to keep this pretty heavy duty, but we're going to keep it rolling. So we'll talk about a topic, get some discussion going. Obviously, this is an opinionated discussion. This does not reflect anything other than the podcast itself. And what we'll do is we'll talk about a topic, and then we're going to roll to a couple headlines, and we'll probably make fun of them because they're I don't know. We'll just see where it goes. And then the other part of it is we'll jump back into another heavy duty topic, and then play for you also a clip of a very heretical statement made by one of the. It's easy to pick on prosperity gospel teachers, but they're really the ones that are making the most money and the most with the most notoriety. Mm-hmm. So obviously people are still listening to them and believing them. So there's a purpose for that, but we will address that as we go through the podcast. So, well, first and foremost, you guys, I think we need to bring up a topic tonight, and Netflix. Netflix has a show on there called Cuties, and it's been kind of the talk of the town. Netflix has stayed behind and defended this miniseries, but it is basically the exploitation of young girls who are into dancing. Obviously, we know a lot of kids that dress up like ballerinas and they like to dance. That's one thing. But this is all about a more provocative look at kids and an expose, and they're coming under a really heavy fire. But what? Are you familiar with this, and how? If so, how much have you heard about this?
I haven't heard anything about it. I see it a lot, though.
Okay.
But
And I haven't heard about it either. But yeah, I can't say that I agree with a little kid and putting all sorts of makeup and dancing provocatively and. Yeah.
Well, and I think this is Zach. You and I have talked about this it's not even the Netflix thing is kind of bringing up notoriety, but this has been going on for a while, and this obviously results back into the whole point of child trafficking.
We'll back up before we get into that. So this whole Cuties thing is. Have any of you watched any of it?
I have not.
Okay, neither have I, but I have talked to someone who has watched it, and she watched it solely based on reviewing it, right? Mm-hmm. So from a mother standpoint, she's watching this and ingesting it for what it is. And in a nutshell, without seeing it, so forgive me, but this is what was relayed to me. This show follows a group of adolescent girls, so 11, 12 years old. And they are on, a dance team or whatever. But what they're doing is that they are completely mimicking the pop stars of today. So Miley Cyrus, Beyonce, all of these people that perform live and do these grinding moves, these sexualizations of dance moves on stage, are just being ingested by girls of today who are coming into their own in this world. So it can be an absolute reflection on the parents, but we need to step aside and reevaluate our society. Like if we're gonna allow grown women to do this and objectify it and pay, and applaud it, then on that same, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Then how can you blame the girls for doing it?
Yeah.
I mean, this also goes back. Dancing hasn't been very family friendly in that age group. I mean, I was in middle school, and the only dancing that involved was grinding.
Yeah.
I mean, there was, you either stood there or you got into a big group where the adults couldn't see you, and you did, it was very, very provocative for being that age group. And that was 2003, 2004. So
15 years more.
So, I mean, we now progress into not only, the sex trafficking of today, but the absolute, the ease of pornographic material at our fingertips on everything we own.
We've got a culture that isn't far removed. I mean, if you're in your late 20s, you guys are in your 20s here, but Kay and I have been around a little bit longer, and we can remember and tell you it was 30 years ago when anything that was suggestive on primetime regular television was only aired at 9 p.m. or later Central Time. So Knots Landing, Dallas, things like that, those were all at 9 o'clock. So our bedtime was 8:59.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of why, HBO was created?
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
And so that we've, it was always like, where do you push the envelope for your families? And a lot of times, we wouldn't watch a movie that we thought that the kids might, be, anything risque or graphic or,
right.
Violent or anything like that. It was going to be done when you guys were not around because we just, I don't know. I was a young parent and I didn't want to impress upon you, the stuff that we were, going through. If you haven't figured it out, Dr. Z is my kid. So,
Yeah, your family show started at 7 o'clock, right after dinner on a Sunday or something. It was like Walt Disney or something like that.
Family Matters, things like that. You'd watch that with your family, then you'd buggle off to bed.
They're rerunning that show, by the way. It's fantastic.
Nobody can do it better. That's why Andy Griffith's show is still popular. All right, well, okay, and so it's hard for us, the four of us, to sit there and criticize a show that we have not seen, but we hear enough about it to know that it's at least something. Yeah. People aren't going to be up in arms about it if they're not upset. But this isn't the first time this has happened.
Right.
This is just going on. This is just like more of an acceptance of the culture that it's okay. But then on the flip note of this, where do you draw a line?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I think when all this was kind of brought up was John Bonet. She was, the little girl that was cute, was dancing and had all this makeup and the provocative. And I think that's kind of about the, time era of when everything kind of started with this whole,
yeah.
Hey, let's
Jean Benet Ramsey, for those of you who do not know, she was a little girl who was involved in a lot of, I guess it would be like competition dancing.
Yeah.
And she was abducted and murdered and, so on.
What year?
Yeah.
Oh boy, 92, 93. Am I off there?
Yeah, somewhere right around
So
there.
nearly 30 years ago, but it was big stuff. I mean, it was all over every headline news, nightly news thing for a while. And yeah, bad deal. But this is kind of back in that. This is what, I'm not going to say this is what you get for doing that because the child has no bearing on it. Parents are forcing their children to do this, but I don't think in Jean Benet's Ramsey's deal it was that. So
I don't think that was the case, but I think just it brought attention out in regards to the whole part of dressing up little girls to with makeup and fancy dresses and getting them out there to dance. And I think from that time on, it has just snowballed. I mean, you know, I know you talk about this cuties that I haven't seen, but I know there's been several
Toddlers and tiaras.
Yeah,
stuff like
all these
that.
different things that come out that they show on TV, and I don't.
It's
like,
more of a show for the parents than it is for the children.
Yeah,
You know, like it's a total competition between moms and,
yeah.
you know, whatever. And you're dolling up your 4-year-old to look like
Well,
she's Dolly Parton, for crying out
Yeah,
loud.
and I think the mother lives through that child.
Vicariously.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And,
So 1 Thessalonians 4, to back this up, this is the will of God, your sanctification. 1 Thessalonians 4, 3, 4, and 5. For this is the will of God, your sanctification, that you abstain from sexual immorality, that each one of you know how to control his or her own body in holiness and honor, not in the passion of lust, like the Gentiles who do not know God. Now, this was obviously a letter by Paul written to the church in Thessalonica, and this was addressing Jews that were living there, but obviously Paul was the messenger to the Gentiles as well. And so the Gentiles, although, you know, you always think of the non-Jewish people as Gentile. However, there was a lot of people, especially when that letter was written and the Bible had not, you know, it was just going out for the first time. It was being carried to the world. So this is nothing new. Back in the book of Leviticus, obviously abstaining from sexual immorality was something that was laid out for all of God's people, and we are to carry the Old Testament, New Testament together as one going forward.
Well, the Romans, the entire time, the fact that grown men, Roman soldiers, felt that it was an intimate experience to have sexual relations with little boys.
Yeah.
No, yep.
They had a word for it, like some, you know, ceremonious
Yeah.
activity, some weird crap that, you know, yeah. But it's been going on for a while.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
this is
putrid, man.
Yeah, and I think Japanese samurais had the same thing going on.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We have a culture that's adapted to this, and is continuing to move forward. And we're going to see more of this. Obviously, this isn't the only topic of sexual immorality or trafficking or anything that we'll address at
But
some
the
point.
fact that children are in the spotlight of it now is an
Yeah.
absolute
Yeah.
disgrace.
Well, there's a lot of people who are now up in arms to the point where they're dropping Netflix. So at the same time, simultaneously, that Netflix has now launched a sort of their own version of VidAngel, by the way, so that you can begin watching movies that are cleaned up, so that you can watch movies that are more wholesome, and, you know, any language is taken out and sex scenes are taken out, and so it just makes it a movie without the extra things that we obviously are all bothered by Hollywood doing time and time again. So how about that? So
I was going to say, would there be anything left of the movie?
precisely
20 minutes of dialogue,
Right,
credits
right.
roll.
All right, we're going to head into our next segment here. We're going to jump right to a couple of headlines. So our esteemed Zach and Kay have prepared for us a
Ladies
headline
first.
of something. Ladies first. You get to go first, young lady, so go for it.
Put you on the spot, Kay.
I would say one of the things that I'm kind of passionate about right now is the nursing homes. I think with our elders, you know, we have to take care of them, and I realize that they have to go to nursing homes because, you know, their families today they've got to go to work. They can't take care of their elders, so we
Right.
rely on nursing homes. Well, the reason why I'm passionate about this is because I just don't think it's right that when we pay and they go into a facility and now we've been cut off from them. It's like they're living in a prison.
Especially with COVID right now. Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking because I have some friends out there that haven't seen like their mother for 6 months.
I just
and-
spoke to somebody today, and their one of their kids works as the director of a nursing home in Kansas City, and that has been something that has just torn them apart because for many months in a nursing home, they wouldn't allow them to eat in the dining room. They would have to bring their food to them. So basically, they were confined to their room, almost like a prison cell, and you know they don't have much to do.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're abandoned. Do you remember the song by Tourniquet back in the day, Zach? And the name of the song just popped out of my head, but it's actually a song focusing on how we leave the elderly be. We put them in a nursing home and we leave them and go. And the Sopranos did a funny take on that with Joey Soprano's mom.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's the point. Is the mom was fighting. I don't want to go. I don't want to be separated from my family, and I want to go to this because you're just going to leave me. It's a fear of them, and then to have them go through this.
Yeah. So I just think, I don't know. I would do, and the flip side of this is that families right now are trying to do whatever they can do for their children to get educated. But yet we can take our parents or our aunts or uncles or whatever, and we put them in the facilities to get taken care of. I just sit there and I think, well, if you're taking care of your children, hire somebody to come into your house and take care of your elderly parent or whoever. And it's safer, I feel, to be in your home and have a person come in to take care of your elderly loved ones.
Certainly. And I want to do a shout out because I actually know a few people who work in nursing homes who do over and above beyond the work. Like, you always hear the bad rap.
Why.
Yeah, because there's always going to be bad apples, right? Like, because you know that after one bad police officer, well, they're all bad.
Yeah.
Correct.
Sorry, that's tongue-in-cheek and sarcasm. Anyway, moving on. Similarly, we know that there are some people who do this in a nursing home. And then there's other people who just, they bust their tail and they're trying to do the best they can of taking care of our parents, our grandparents.
Yeah.
Funny that you bring this up because 1 Timothy 5 says this, 1 Timothy 5:8, but if anyone does not provide for his relatives and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever.
So take care of your family.
Take care of your family.
Yes.
But then COVID sneaks in and then creates this firestorm of and not making light of COVID-19 or the coronavirus. And it's in and of itself, there are people who have it, who have died from it. It's very brutal. Boy,
Yeah.
this is where you can really get in trouble with everything. To it, how we're wearing masks and social distancing. Okay, so let's just say we understand. Let's just say we're still in the unknown stages of coronavirus. We understand why we're doing all these things. We're 7th month in by the time we're recording this. We could go into a whole launch thing about this, but let's just say this. Let's say we're in April and we don't know much about this. And the evidence that we've had of the actual death toll now, and not
It's not discounting the people who have died from it.
no, or the fact that you can, but there's a mental psyche point here that we're forgetting. We're talking about the same government, by the way, who shut down the state of Kansas just a couple of years ago, a handful of years ago, shut down all the state hospitals in Topeka, and it was a horrible thing to see these people literally put on the street. Where are they going to go?
Yeah.
Did a paper about that in college, about how you have all these people who rely on everything you have to give them, and you overnight shut your doors. Where are they going? On the street.
So we have people who are able-bodied, able to work, and they don't.
Right.
They were so not to say the people who aren't down on their luck and need the welfare assistance. That's what it was for. It was created for. But you have people who are very reliant on it and think it's their mandated
Well, it's
duty
also
to be able to receive.
incentivized.
Yes, it is.
If you're a single woman, to get assistance.
Yeah.
There's no
If you have
incentive-
children.
If you have children, there's no incentive to keep the family dynamic together when you can boot so-and-so to the curb and the government pays you for that. Come on. Logically, let's go here.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You're right. And so we've got people like this who are able to work, able to do whatever, and they're not. They're milking the system because there's people in every culture that does this. And then at the same time, you have people who are kicked out of the state mental facilities, then they cannot take care of themselves. And they're living under a bridge now. They're in Tent City.
Yeah.
10 cents.
And this is why the rescue missions of the world have just blown up because it's our culture. We're not taking care of each other.
Right.
Now, that's a whole nother that's a good thing we're doing a podcast. We can do lots of topics. Okay, we're going to go to our next topic. Great job, Kay. I love that. And I think that's definitely something that we need to be perfectly considering on how we proceed forward. We'll watch this and monitor this, and we'll follow back up with it once we kind of know what happens over the next couple of months, especially after the election. I'm not talking about politics. Go ahead.
No.
So I had a couple different articles that I read, but to keep it for the podcast and to save Gage on the hate mail,
Thanks.
I want to highlight one that I read. So with the lockdowns occurring in March, we saw a picture about a month in of like the skyline of Los Angeles, at sunset, and you saw the moon in its majesty, and there was no smog. It was beautiful, like, right? Because you see the mountains and this is LA. This is gorgeous. So here we are in September, and a scientific journal, this was peer reviewed. It hasn't been published for copy editing or anything like that, so it's very infantile in its research stages. But since the lockdowns globally have taken place, the Earth itself has warmed up 0.04 degrees Kelvin. So
And what is that? What would that mean to us?
Kelvin is a degree of measurement. Okay, so it's just Fahrenheit, Celsius, Kelvin. Okay, I don't remember, that's a lot of years ago to explain everything about Kelvin.
No, you're good. You're good.
But all it basically means is that since we cut out emissions from factories and vehicles and everything, global warming is still happening.
Yeah.
So either we've severely screwed up with the emissions and they're getting locked into the ozone, and no matter if we shut down, it's going to keep doing it, or the Earth really, is surrounded by a core of molten lava, which might be spewing to the surface. That might have something to do with the warming of the surface of the planet. So I'm no geologist. I took a semester in college, so therefore I am a pro. No, just kidding.
That's more educated than most of the people you find on social media. So
True.
But it's pretty funny to see, the human race locked down and everything that, if you drive an SUV, you need to be guilty of yourself. We got to do all electric vehicles.
Yep.
We got to do all this, that, and the other. We shut it down, and the planet still heats up. So I don't know. I just kind of thought there's either absolutely nothing to that, and I will own that. All the science buffs in the world can start slinging their mud at me right now, and you ain't gonna offend me because I am honest and I do not know. But it's pretty darn funny just to see it and look at it from logical standpoint.
Well, yeah, and we've had now time to find out exactly where we stand with everything. I do think there's a lot of irony in the idea that we were really trying to get more jobs back in America. More jobs back in America, and now everything's so shut down that we're actually still getting now everything shipped to you from Amazon from outside the United States of America. So I don't know.
How come we live in Cowtown, USA, Topeka, Kansas, Tecumseh, Kansas, in the case of this church? We are surrounded by cattle. You go to Dillon's, no, the cows are on strike. What is going on here? All right, cows outnumber us, man, 2-1 in this state. We should be eating like kings.
I know.
And instead, we're paying double, triple what we should be for beef.
Well, I gotta tell you,
Kansas, for crying out loud.
I'm happy to see that the brisket prices have been falling and plummeting the way that they should have been.
Chicken's chicken, so
we can't go fishing here for anything other than catfish or maybe some walleye or bluegill or something.
Carp.
So carp, carp is always so tasty.
Catfish is the Kansas special.
Yeah, it's a Kansas special. You got to soak that bad boy. You got to take you got to
Sprite.
Yeah, soak it in Sprite overnight, man. It takes all the muddy flavor out of it, and then it tastes like fish. It's a good fish. All right. So did you have another headline that you wanted to bring up?
I did, but for the sake of this podcast, for first episode, we're going to keep it at that.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So what we try to do, what we want to do is be able to open up the opportunity for you to let us know how you, some topics that you would like to discuss. So if you want to reach out to us and you want to give us your opinion of, give us your opinions or
questions, comments, concerns.
That's it. What is our email address? Gotcha.
So it's freaksofthevine@gmail.com.
All lowercase.
Yeah, all lowercase and it's all spelled out.
Freaks of the Vine. Okay, so a lot of people are going to ask what Freaks of the Vine are, and so Jesus tells us that He is the vine. He is the true vine, and because of that, we are part of that. We are heirs with Christ. We are part of His fold as believers, and obviously we're Jesus freaks. And so here's one thing about the four of us, all of us.
Thank you, DC Talk.
That's right. We're going to take that bad boy from 92 on. Actually, I think that came out in 95, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, the year of DC Talk's Jesus Freaks album was an amazing album. But
Yes, it was.
we want to be able to talk about these things openly, but all four of us are believers. Now, here's the thing. None of us were born, raised in just beautiful Christian homes. We all had our time in the world. All of us have had difficult lives, difficult things happen in life.
This isn't Seventh Heaven.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for people who are listening or people who care to hear this, that this is coming from an aspect of people who want the moral fiber that God provides in His Word of God. Okay? The text of the Holy Bible does not contradict itself. If you sit there and study it, we can have a discussion about it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, that being said, us four have been jaded by the world in more ways than one, right? We are very human. Newsflash, Christian or not, we are part of the human
Yeah.
condition.
That's right.
We struggle with everything that everybody does.
Been there, done that.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to this is not an elitist podcast. This isn't a holier than thou attitude. This is let's have a conversation because I'm sick and tired of everyone having to pick a side of the fence when it's okay to walk down the middle of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Always we will revert back. Well said. And always we're going to revert back to the Word, as you stated, because we're going to. That's what there's two worldviews. There's the biblical worldview, and then there's the secular worldview, or just the worldview. And the most of the world does not hold to the biblical worldview. I talked to somebody on the phone today. We were talking about something, and he mentioned he called me about something, and it doesn't make a difference the topic. But he said he ended it knowing I'm a pastor. He ends the topic with, the prairie land is so pretty, and it's 3 million years old. And I said, Ed, yeah, in your worldview, not in mine. And he goes, oh, you're one of those new earth creation people. And I said, I'm a biblical person. I follow the biblical timeline. I wasn't always that way.
right.
I always believed that the world was millions or billions of years old because that's what we were always taught and told. Scientifically, that's being challenged in multitudes now. The problem is that there's a worldview of secularism. And and we can still discuss it. If somebody brings to me with their secular humanistic worldview, and they believe that they're educated, and then they're going to find out that I'm a Christian, and they're going to look down on me because they think that I'm just going to be some sort of a religious hypocrite. Fine.
Yep.
If that's your gig, stick with it. If that's what you really think of me, right? Stick with that. That's fine. But I'm not going to tell you to stick it, by the way. I know you thought I was going to say that. But here's the thing. I was of that worldview too. But the world never treated me very well. And depression and thoughts of suicide and some form of alcoholism and drug abuse. These things are all things these are part of the human condition that some of us are familiar with, and all of us are familiar, however, with the empty feeling, because with Christ you don't feel that emptiness any longer, even though the world continues to spin and continues to suck at heavy duty ratios at times. By our experiences daily, we do know that we find our peace and our calm in Christ Jesus. And so as I study, the more I study the Word, I become an apologetic, far from being an apologetic expert. I'm an aspiring apologist. An apologist, by the way, comes from 1 Peter 3:15, where Peter says, do everything that you do, that you have, the hold of the hope that you have, but do so in gentleness and respect. Give an apologia, and that is an apologetic, an explanation or reason for the hope that you have. I'll pull up the exact thing and try to paraphrase it, but you know what I'm getting at. Having a reason for what you believe in, no matter what it is. So Zach, if you roll in here and you've got a humanistic worldview, humanistic, secularistic worldview, and you're going to spew out what you thought.
Tried college.
How is the college
Seriously,
experience now, gentlemen?
Well, I don't know. I'm out finally.
Yeah, I don't know.
Thank God for that.
But
I think most of it's online.
Yep.
But no, when you're, yeah, I mean, I think it's important when you look at it. People want proof. When you can sit there and dissect the layers of sediment rock, you know, and the crust of the earth, and say that this happened over years and years and years of heat and pressure, you know, and
Yep.
this, that, you know, like it sounds legit, you
Yep.
know, that the timeline does match up to it. The problem where all of that falls short, though, is that you cannot explain to me and you cannot provide an answer as to how the earth was born.
Yep.
Sorry, Gage, go ahead.
I did a lot of research on this, and the whole carbon dating thing is just based off an assumption of how old fresh carbon is versus the old. But you know, you have to take into account if an asteroid hit, killed all the dinosaurs. You know, all this happened. So now you have all this ash that's over it. Did that affect it? Then the world being flooded. Did that affect it? If you take carbon from like a fresh water, like a river, they have to do calculations. How long's the river been running? How long, pressure, everything. That takes into account. So it changes the numbers. It skews it. But if the whole world was submerged, it'd also skew it. So now you have to prove that. And they're already doing tests in Antarctica. Found that it really was.
And the number of 25, not 2,500, not 250, 25,000 archaeological digs registered, right? Tracked down and documented.
Biblical
digs to either disprove or approve or confirm biblical findings.
Yep.
If the world was not underwater, how was Noah's Ark found in a mountain?
Yep. It doesn't make any sense.
So we dig up fossils, right? And we go, okay, 17.5 billion years old,
Yeah.
Paleolithic era. This guy ate trees. Awesome. Cool, right? We can put our thumb on that. And then we find a boat in a giant rock 2,000 feet in the air. And it's like, I don't know how that got there.
Yeah.
The indigenous tribes of, you know,
They just built
wherever, bored and got a bunch of wood and built a freaking boat in the mountain. Like, no, come on. Like, there's a double standard here.
Yeah, there's indigenous tribes. We're going to carry that boat up there. It took them about 9 years. But
I butchered that word, so thank you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We don't even talk about how I can destroy the English language in 142
I do speak
minutes.
it fluently, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Believe it or not.
One thing that I want to bring up to that point, and I don't remember the exact number. I think you're right. I think it's been over 25,000 digs. Well, let's just say, let's dull it down. Let's say there's been only 10,000 archaeological digs. Let's just say
1,000.
How about 500?
Okay.
Let's even take it like a lot. Let's just keep taking it down. Let's take 100 archaeological
Just
digs.
one.
Let's just
100,
say
okay?
100 archaeological digs.
That's still over 10 digs a continent.
And not one of them has been disproven of the Bible.
In fact, it does the exact
It
contrary.
confirms
Or affirms what we already know.
affirms or finds nothing.
Yeah.
So there's what do you know the chances we talk about this, you know, a lot of people obviously as a Christian the hinge pin here, you know, the benchmark, the one thing that everybody has to hold firm on in order to be a born again believer is the resurrection, the bodily resurrection of Christ. And so many people, and we'll do a show on this at a later time, but this is something that's always been criticized, right? But there was
as well as the virgin birth.
Sure,
Absolutely.
sure. And there's so many things that we will go through. We will take those pillars one probably at a time and kind of chunk through this. But let's just say the resurrection. We'll just fire off on this one. Okay. So here's the thing. The biggest point of contention for people who say that Christianity isn't real, they don't believe in Christ, or they don't believe that Christ was a fulfillment of anything other than maybe a good prophet. was the resurrection. Now, there's a lot of people who will sit around. There's a hallucination theory that they've cast out there and said, obviously there's a lot of people who could be hallucinating his bodily appearance.
I think Rogan even said that Moses hallucinated on some DMT in the burning bush. Yeah, we're getting to that point now. Prophets were just tripping.
Yeah, that's a good point. Exactly. Yeah. But with the resurrection of Jesus Christ, let me just tell you that it was over 500. And I throw this one out there a lot through sermons because you always get more people who walk in the door of a church who hear a sermon for the first time or who aren't ever there to hear this. And so from time to time I will chime on this one, and that is there were almost 600 eyewitnesses to the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. Eyewitnesses. They're
Joseph Smith.
No, not Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon religion.
Muhammad.
Right. All of them who proclaim their deity or their legit deity or deification of their God, small g, with no eyewitnesses other than themselves for their land.
Correct. There was no accountability.
Correct. Yep. With Christ, you had over 500 people, almost 600 who were eyewitnesses, or there was an eyewitness account. There are secular investigators who have gone to great lengths to help attack this principle, have come away more times than not as believers, because the insurmountable, obvious evidence to uphold this is astronomical.
Absolutely. And on that note right there, it contradicts the thought of the secular view that we don't have any proof. If I don't see it, it just doesn't exist. You see gravity?
Yeah.
You see the wind?
Yeah, you see the effects of the wind. You don't see the wind.
Correct. So on that point, there is a document of text known as the Word of God that says, it is a historical document, by the way. It's not a scientific document. It's not a psychological. It is a historical document. Yep. So that being said, if we do not believe this historical document, then we cannot believe in what the findings of Galileo or what the foundings of the Roman. We have no written history. We have no accountability for the written history, right? If we don't believe in it.
Yeah.
So we have a written down documentation of people seeing the so-called Son of God defeating death. There is your proof, and we still ignore it because it's old, it's outdated, and it doesn't apply to us.
But when you grow up from kindergarten or even preschool throughout all of your education, you can go to a Christian school and still not learn the Word of God.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
So, but we have this mindset. We've
the only correlation I was making at though is that you have no business taking what you're listening or what you're being educated on as history. You can't take that for a grain of salt then if you're going to disprove this book.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there are so many verifications, like the trend, like we can get into that another day.
I know.
But historical documents are historical documents, and for us to pick and choose is ignorant.
It's not only ignorant, it's the most cowardice thing you can do because you don't like somebody.
Yeah.
Just because I don't like if I were to look at you and say, well, the Muslim religion, it's just wacky. Well, that's a statement that it's predicated on what? Because I've read some of the Quran, that I've sat down and talked to a couple Muslims. Mm-hmm. No, I haven't. Or, if I make that statement more times than not, I have not. Most of the time when you speak to somebody who's of the Nation of Islam or a Muslim, most of them are very respectful.
They're very,
respectable.
Yeah.
And so they, you can have an apologetic to your belief in Christ
with a Muslim and not get confrontational.
But if you know a little bit about what they believe, it helps them to understand your apologetic approach. So, if I do know a little bit about the Quran and I can quote, any particular part of it, and they really appreciate that you've gone out of your way to learn a little bit about them. And so then your conversation is not abrasive and it's not confrontational, because that's the worst thing you can do with anybody. And see, that's the problem with Christians a lot of times. My father once told me when I was a child, and I never understood it. He said the only problem with Christianity is Christians themselves. Well, I never knew what he meant by that. But for a while, I kind of used that as my fuel to be kind of atheist. And then when I came around to understand it, my dad didn't mean it as in a shot to Christ. He meant it as a shot to the religiosity of the world. Because so many people, especially Christians at times, put off this presentation of better than thou.
Absolutely.
But so do people who have no faith.
Yes, they do.
Their nose are so far up in the air, a bird's going to crud on it, right?
Yep.
If it rains, they're going to drown.
Right. So that could be that way with anybody. So when you are a born again professed Christian, you need to be different than the world.
It's tough. Oh, dang it, is it tough?
Well-
but there is an internal change that goes on that helps.
We're told to be a peculiar people. We are told to be, as believers, to be a peculiar people. So the people who are listening to this podcast who have no faith, they're just listening to pick it up. Look, and we love to talk about this with anybody, but
A call to Christ doesn't mean that you need to give up every single vice that you have in your life right at this second.
it's impossible
Right.
to.
You can't
No.
do it.
Yeah.
For crying out loud. I mean, if you get anything, do it more. Do it more and see how fulfilling
Yeah.
it is.
Do you ever struggle with that one?
Yeah.
Yep.
How to
All of us
benefit?
have, because that's the traditional mindset.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, you can no more cursing, no more drinking, no more smoking. You can't listen to that. You can't
Yep.
watch that. No, you can't do that to yourself. That's
Nope.
the number one way to become an atheist.
You're exactly right, and I think that's where the world, the unbelieving world finds so unbelieving is because we can truly turn our backs to
Is you profess
that.
one thing with your lips and then act another way. But that's everybody.
I know, but that's why we have to learn how. When
There's a sense of accountability that you must own.
Paul talks incessantly about how you are to bear the fruit.
Yeah.
In Galatians chapter 5, he talks about how these are. I want you to listen to this from the Apostle Peter. It comes, by the way, I'm going to lead into the apologetic statement that I made earlier. Finally, all of you have unity in mind, sympathy, brotherly love, a tender heart, and a humble mind. Does that sound like it just has to come from the Bible?
That sounds like a pretty, common theme amongst a civilized society.
That's just sound advice. It's advice of wisdom. Do not repay evil for evil, or reveling for reveling, or reviling, as some people would pronounce it. But on the contrary, bless for to this you were called, that you may obtain a blessing. Okay, now listen, in verse 13 through 15. Now, who is there to harm you if you are zealous for what is good? But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled, but in your hearts honor Christ as Lord, the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for the reason for the hope that is in you, yet do so in gentleness and respect. So no matter what, you are to hold to your your trust in God without being a jerk. Okay, guys,
Are
this
you
is
segueing into something?
I'm segueing because this is a proponent of one of the reasons why we have such a hard time with Christians. Okay, and that is this is our little thing we like to call
Removing the plank.
I'm going to play it for you, then we're going to discuss who it is and what she does for a living. Okay, you ready?
Go for it.
We command all satanic pregnancies to miscarry right now. We declare that anything that's been conceived in satanic wombs, that it'll miscarry.
Oh, wow.
Lovely.
So,
Satanic conceptions, huh?
yeah,
And that's a Christian woman?
that's Miss Paula White, who happens to be the spiritual advisor of our president. And like I said, this isn't a political podcast, but we certainly will talk about things that are around it. Obviously, we're just not going to get hung up on why bill number
Red or
67.
blue?
Yeah.
Red or blue, right? Bill 67 is just can't pass in front of the House and the Senate next week. We're not going to do that. That's for like 7,000 other podcasts.
That's for everybody else.
That's for everybody else. But I will say this much, that Paula White is his spiritual advisor, and that scares me. He's being advised by somebody who has made erroneous after erroneous statements. She's a pretty lady. Is well known that she was the mistress of Benny Hinn at one time. For those of you who did not know that. And there are...
For those of us who don't know who Benny Hinn is.
Let's just say that Benny Hinn heals nobody by waving his coat and they all fall down.
Got it.
And it looks cool.
Yeah. We'll focus on old Benjamin next time. But Benny and the Jets. Anyway, so Paula White made that statement, and I think that's...
Where was she speaking?
It was a women's conference, I do believe, and the time and the place I do not know, but you can find that on online on YouTube. There's been a few people.
That was supposed to be like a positive.
Yeah, it was a time of prayer, praying for all satanic babies to be aborted. Now we do not as a. Let me give you something. It is the sanctity of human life is so vitally important. People out there, there's gonna be people who listen to this podcast who are very pro-choice, pro-abortion. We'll address this topic. I'm not going to put anybody down for what they believe in. You're never going to hear anything pro-choice out of my mouth because I can't hold to it. Because I've seen the damage that abortion has done to the people who have
Gone through that.
Gone through it, paid for one.
Yep.
Ill-advised a lot of young people. And then later on, it reaps a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They have to go through and contend with a lot of depression, a lot of feeling of inadequacy.
A lot of mental distress for women when they go through something like that.
Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely. And the sad part about this is that we talk about we can fight about the abortion all day long. Mm-hmm. We never talk about abstinence.
I know.
Well, because that's ridiculous. How can you expect us in a free-loving world to keep our pants on?
I was just talking to Gail about this morning, and I don't remember who said it, but I was listening to somebody, and they go, there's one way to have a child. So if you don't want the child, don't do the one thing that causes you to have a child.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's kind of cut and dry.
But that one act that is required is glorified.
Oh, yeah.
On a cultural level.
It's everywhere.
Music, in our television shows, on our commercials.
It all comes back to that.
It's a circle.
Yeah.
It's a circle of life, literally.
Yeah.
Would you just, Kay, if you could walk us through briefly the intensity of carrying a child inside of you? That's something that men don't get a chance to have.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like nothing other. I mean, you are physically bonding with that child in you that you guys don't even have. You will never know.
No, I got a gut. That's because I eat too much.
Yeah, that's an ice cream, Billy.
That's right.
Well,
Burgers.
okay, it's kind of like gas,
It affects in many different ways.
Think of a bad Mexican dinner.
So when that baby's kicking around in there, and you're like going, "Oh, well, that's like gas,"
Yeah.
But no, I mean, for real, it's an amazing feeling knowing that this beautiful thing is growing inside of you, and you have this bond with it that's unbelievable, and there's nothing in the world like it. And then I had my kids and I never even thought about abortion, but I can't imagine the emotional level that you would be on if you were saying you had to make this decision. I mean, I don't even know what would even help you to make that decision, because I would just flat out say no. It's
a misconception, misunderstanding of the ramifications of it. I don't think that people realize what really comes along with the bad side of it. We just get rid of the problem. You just move on.
I'm not going to be a good parent. This kid's not going to have a good life.
This is the bad time of it. Yeah. But you had time to do the deed. But here's the thing. Sometimes there's also
adoption. I mean, I just sit there and I think, have the baby, give it to somebody who really, really can give it. I mean, you might be having a Mozart. You don't know what this this child you're bringing into this world is going to be.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who have over time. I got to hear a speaker, and I will prepare that person's name. I will have it for you the next time we have our next podcast. But there was a speaker who gave a beautiful speech. She was the result of a rape. Her mother kept her, and
that's the number one reasons to get an abortion.
That's according to most people who are for it.
Correct.
But to hear her speak was riveting, and it's powerful, and she's changing people's lives by being that statistic.
Yeah.
That one statistic that you just don't hear a lot about.
That commercial 10 years ago, when a certain football player with a certain belief system played for Denver, and they ran this commercial in a Sunday night football game or whatever, and it was a lady sitting on a couch talking about abortion and how, she's glad that she never did it, and she's glad she kept the kid. And next thing you know, Tim Tebow pops around and he says, "Thanks, Mom."
Yeah.
That was moving.
Yeah.
That was moving.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because you don't know what you're giving up.
Yeah.
And then again, you're going to have a lot of arguments for it, and there always will be. And you know what? We're not going to try to change everybody's mind in one podcast because that's
and
not.
There are people with Christian belief systems who call themselves Christians who are pro-choice.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that a contradiction? Can a Christian be pro-choice? Right. We'll tackle these topics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Going back to the Paula White thing before we move to our last segment of the episode today. The Paula White deal, we want to make sure that you understand that we're going to focus on a statement made. Now, there's plenty of chances for us to make crazy statements. I am a pastor who has battled a form of dyslexia my entire life. And so I have to work very hard to get past that. And so a lot of times I misspeak, but I'm not going to I may forget a word or use a wrong, incorrect word, which is easy to retract and correct. I'm not going to make a statement like that because that's to pray for the abortion of all demonic babies. That's crazy. Now,
is there a such thing as a demonic conception? Like if two human beings had a baby, but both of them were part of the Church of Satan in Detroit, is that a demonic conception?
No, it's a great question. No, it's a child. It's a child.
Yeah.
How about this? How about
no child bears the sins of their father or mother on them when they're born?
Right.
I mean, yeah, they might, in a
Let me ask you a question.
Psychological point of view, but what?
How many Christians do you know were born in a home that wasn't Christian?
Yeah.
Yep.
Most of them.
Yeah.
And it seems like that that picture perfect Christian family household, they're the ones that end up revolting because it's just, you know what I mean? Like there's something to be said about giving a child the biblical construct growing up, giving them the foundation of this is God, this is the Son of God, this is what we believe, and there's another thing to shove it down your throat. And I think that's the biggest problem that parents face.
No, we see it.
I have really good friends of mine who I grew up, with, and their parents were very good people. They still are to this day. But they won't have anything to do with God or Christ because that's all they were fed. And I mean, that's all you need to a certain extent, but you gotta let a kid be a kid.
Yeah.
You can't deny them certain things because you're a little overzealous.
Well, your family construct has to be one of instruction,
not extremism.
No. I mean, you at the same
Christians are extremists, but
yeah. But okay, let's just say this: still raising a child in the Lord, we pray as parents that those children will come back around. Young man, you are a product of me me and your mother raising you as best as we possibly could, right? You had your long bout with having nothing to do with it, and also having nothing to do with your father who decided to become a pastor like it was a midlife crisis.
Correct. Instead of, oh man, this is awesome. It was right after mom died, your insurance from Coca-Cola completely paid for the $1 million cancer treatment that she received for a year. and you're going to drop that to preach words about a ghost. That's what crossed my mind. And I literally looked at my dad when he told me this news of him becoming a preacher. Are you having a midlife crisis? Yeah, I feel very bad about that today. but I was thinking, God just took away my mom in my mind. I just didn't.
But you had a good foundation.
Absolutely.
And
in the core of my heart, I always knew what I believed in, but
it was suppressed.
Yeah.
Can you say that?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
don't we all have to kind of go through you have to find your own way through your
their own
faith.
path to walk in life.
Oh yeah.
I don't think there was any one of us at this table that had it upbringing and we were always together and always, pinching the dimples with our, our index
That's
fingers.
okay, son. You can do it on the boat.
That's right. So we can't sit there and really, we can't relinquish that right to a human being to go through this. But it's a process.
Right.
It's a process, and we all have to learn that process. Okay, well, final topic tonight, and this is one that I really want to jump on. I want to talk next podcast specifically about the current state of the police. I think that's too much of a topic to just brush up on here at the very end of this podcast.
Agreed.
So we're gonna really launch into that one on the next podcast with talking about both sides of it because there's some interesting insights here. On this podcast as well, we will from time to time have guests on. I'm working on a person who is actually very very educated, wrote an entire textbook against what is commonly known as the secret rapture, because he's Sam Storms, and so he we're in discussions.
You're gonna get Sam Storms on here?
That's what I'm working on right now.
Oh man!
And so with any luck, there will have a time that we can have him come on with us on a Tuesday night and record this. But of course, we'll be airing this at a time that we're probably not recording it. We will be pre-recording everything, and then we will air it later. So
send all your hate mail to Gage.
No.
That's right.
Just kidding, brother.
and your love mail. We'd love to hear good from you too.
Mail,
so that would be polite. But if you want to feed us, comments or questions or more topics to talk about. And look, like I said, opinions are like colons, and most people have them. Some people have them removed. But either way, all of us have an opinion, and all of them are stinky. So you may very well might not like our opinions. And that's fine. There are plenty of other podcasts out there, but we're going to tackle these things because, well, to be honest with you, no one's talking about it from this side of the angle.
I think the fear of speaking out that is contrary to the popular belief in today, that's got to stop. We have a voice too, and we are very proud about it, and we will defend it as a unmoving mountain.
Absolutely.
So
a lot of go with the popular.
What is popular is not always right, and what is right is not always popular.
Exactly right. Well, one thing I wanted to close on was that immovable mountain. That's not exactly the easiest word to say.
A little bit of a tongue twister.
It is. It can be the immovable object that is known as Christ. Okay. As you guys, as we kind of wind this down, I want this to make it clear. We are going to try to construct the responses to the issues going on, but we're not above reproach. In other words, if we're incorrect, and we will certainly pick back up the following week. And if we have to, we'll be self-criticized ourselves, Yeah. But here's the thing. In a month, virtually a little bit over a month from the time we're recording this, we are heading towards a pretty big election day. And
there's an election this year?
Yeah, there is actually. Again,
you already voted.
Yeah,
that's right. Mailed it in a week ago.
That's right. There's a lot going on around it. One thing that we're going to urge people to do is to do your own research. Don't base it on. I cannot see people voting for one candidate because they hate one so badly. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, either way, I don't care on what side of the fence you're on with it. It does not matter.
Nope.
If you hate one so much, you're going to vote for the other. Maybe reconsider your tactic.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to come in all guns a-blazing, is that the right way to do that?
And reevaluate your decision making. Is it based on tradition? Is it based on what mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa have always taught you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no, seriously, that's a very legitimate influencing factor on a lot of people's decision making, and not just in politics. So we need to extract ourselves from what we are sitting here and what we have boxed ourselves in as. Step outside, reevaluate, and just think for ourselves in a logical manner.
Yep.
You know, you do not need to do something because of convenience or because of confidence. So,
I think it's telling too. That's something to bring that notion that you just brought up, Zach. It comes to a head here in 1 Timothy 2, verse 8. Listen to this. I desire then that in every place the men should pray, lifting up holy hands without anger or quarreling. Likewise also and it goes into the apparel part of it, okay? But that we should present ourselves. Let's just put it that way. It does say the women should adorn themselves in respectable apparel with modesty and self-control, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire, but with what is proper for women who profess godliness, which is good works. That is written into the context, obviously, of that is written. 1 Timothy 2 is written to what was kind of going on in that church of representation of godliness. But I think it's so applicable today. But the point is that I desire that in every place men should pray, lifting up holy hands, whether without anger or quarreling. Without anger or quarreling. In other words, you may be mad about something, but cooler heads shall prevail. And bring it to God in prayer, no matter what your opinion is of this, because ultimately, if we're praying people, then God's going to, he's sovereignly going to do what he's going to do anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, like it or not. Well, you know, like Clinton or Bush or Obama or Trump or whoever the next president may be, whether it's Trump for a second term or Biden and Harris or whatever, you know, we just, whatever's going to happen. Let's just go down in history that we just know that we're going to still be praying, because we're in a very funky time right now in the world. And so, all right. The next week we're going to address the topic of the police, the brutality, also the horrible angst that's against police everywhere and what's happening there. It's not being publicized. We're going to talk about the media, and we're also going to talk about a couple other things of note. So we really hope and pray that you have enjoyed this podcast. And so
first one in the books.
That's right. First one is in the books. And give us some time, you guys, to work out our kinks. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining Freaks of the Vine. We ask that you tune in next time, and you'll be able to check us out soon on many different platforms as soon as we get this out and rolling. But as you listen, please tell your friends, please share it, like it, and please let us know your thoughts and your questions or concerns or nothing at all. If you don't just want to tune in every week and listen, we like that too. Anyway, you can send your financial donation. I'm just kidding. Don't listen. No, we're not asking for nothing. We're good. So, hey, you guys take care. And again, from the HHCC studios, we thank you for joining us on Freaks of the Vine.